So the overhead press, as it relates to developing your strength, it is not really that great of a movement to develop your overall strength. You are going to develop your strength on the overhead press. For that, it is absolutely fucking awesome, but it's targeting primarily your front delts and side delts, and it targets the side delts a lot. If you really want to develop your shoulders, get your shoulders more round and shit, overhead presses is a great lift to be introduced into your program. But overall, if you just overhead press, will you eventually become a better bencher, become a better like any other lift? No, you will improve on the overhead press, so much so that if you stop overhead pressing for too long, your strength on the overhead press starts declining. So it has a lot of maintenance to maintain the strength. I don't know why. Intuitively it makes no sense to me. Maybe it's because of the sheer amount of weight that is being used, but I usually think of lifts where the bar path is in a vertical position compared to your spine. I usually think of those lifts as lifts that are going to be extremely stimulating for overall strength. But my experience with the overhead press is that I develop awesome shoulders. I get stronger on the overhead press the more I do the overhead press, but it doesn't really contribute to the rest of my fucking strength. So for strength, I will put a fucking 3. And for myofibrillar hypertrophy, specifically on the shoulders and building those capped fucking delts, building your delts so they can look way better. I wish my lighting provided me with the opportunity to show. I'm going to take some pictures to show off my fucking delts, but my delts are pretty good. Are probably my body part that I feel the most proud about is the delts and traps. So to develop myofibrillar hypertrophy on your fucking delts and triceps, the overhead press is fucking insane. It's king, bro. It's insane. And for that, my friends, I will give you a fucking 5 for fucking myofibrillar hypertrophy for sure. If you want big shoulders, if you want big triceps and you're not overhead pressing, I don't know what the fuck you are doing, okay? It's insanity. Stick to 4 to 6 reps with the overhead press. Don't go overboard. Don't go way beyond that, because it's too much easy. You see the position that Dimitri is assuming there. When you are grinding heavy reps on the overhead press, we tend to overextend our back, and that's where problems happen. I fucking screwed my back overhead pressing like a maniac a couple of years ago. And it cost me deadlifts, it cost me heavy squats, it cost me a lot for a long fucking time. Even running wasn't available to me because I was trying to be, because essentially, look how silly I was. I was chatting with people on Reddit, and I had a pretty decent 1 rep max for the overhead press at that time. I was like 82 kilos and I was overhead pressing 95 kilos. When people start complimenting me on my overhead press, and I always knew that my overhead, my shoulder press is my best lift. I grew up monkeying around and doing handstands and shit, and my shoulder mobility allows me to express a lot of strength confidently on the overhead press, but my lower back got blown out because I was trying to reach a 225 overhead press, and I just exaggerated and fucked up trying to grind that 225 rep. It came up to here, and then I tried to transform the lift into a bench press by leaning back, and then I just felt like a tiny balloon of air was pierced in my lower back. And yeah, that sucks a lot. And then I had to rehab my back for 4 months. This means no running, no fucking lifting at all, just doing a lot of exercises to decompress the spine and to allow blood to go in between the discs. But heavy lifting and the stuff that I really love doing, no bueno. So be careful with overhead presses and go for 4 to 6 reps tops. Don't be grinding tons of reps on overhead presses. Moving forward, sarcoplasmic hypertrophy. Well, we just touched on that. Don't go grinding a ton of fucking reps on overhead presses. There are other options that are way better, especially if you have access to a gym. At least if you have access to fucking dumbbells, you have a better option right there. Okay, so for standard barbell overhead presses, don't go to a lot of fucking reps. Focus on working on lower rep ranges. As for time efficiency, this is another place that it is not that incredible. I don't think that going to the gym and doing just overhead presses is I don't want, I will not feel complete. I will not feel fucking complete if I go to the gym and just do overhead presses. I need to introduce some lateral raises, maybe another, maybe I will, I usually when I do overhead presses, I start with pull-ups because I like to get my lats really engaged before I go overhead pressing so I can feel stable when I'm pumping the weight up. So I would say that you need at least 2 exercises to go alongside overhead presses to really have a solid workout with it. So just doing overhead press, not really the best idea in my books. So I will give it a 3 at time efficiency. And the learning curve. Overhead presses are extremely straightforward. The only thing that I can think of that you need to learn, you need to learn how to brace. You need to learn how to point your fucking elbows forward so you can conjure your the full power of your triceps. Some people like overhead press like this, like You are just putting your shoulder in a position where it's being less stimulated because you want the full contraction of the front delt. And so keep your fucking elbows pointing forward, and that's retarded. That's super simple to learn. Brace, and don't go for a lot of reps. Be conservative with the number of reps that you are doing. Try to go as heavy as possible. That's all you need to learn about the overhead press. So to me, the learning curve of the overhead press, there's not a lot of mysteries. There's not a lot of progressions. I think the learning curve is excellent. It's a full score for a learning curve. I never saw a great instructional video that blew my mind about the overhead press outside of like squeeze your glutes, point your elbows forward, brace, press. What else? I don't have that information. It's not like the bench press, the squat, that I'm always tweaking something like, oh, if you position your fucking hand like this, and if you squeeze, and if you think about ponies, then it's going to change everything. Yeah, look at that direction, look at this direction. There isn't a lot of nuances to the overhead press. It's just go. Let's see the question from Bob on the chat. How many reps in reserve for overhead presses? Look at the position Klokov is there. Assuming that position, the moment you feel that you are slightly arching your back and trying to turn the overhead press into a bench press or an inclined bench press, that's the point you need to stop. Think to yourself, okay, I'm trying to grind and like extend. That's the point. That's the cue you need to give yourself. Okay, that's time to stop my overhead press today. So don't use reps in reserve or RPE or even bar speed, which are the three main methods of gauging if you are introducing enough stimulus to a lift that I personally use. For the overhead press, all I think about is just, hey, am I overextending my back? If not, let's go. Let's keep going, and trying to go as heavy as fucking possible. So at the end of the day, the score for the overhead press is a solid fucking 17. Thanks for the awesome learning curve and the awesome potential for developing your shoulders.